What's going on, everybody? It's Enigma Towles. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope you had a great holiday season. Happy New Year to you all. I know it's been a while since I've done an actual talking video, but I did receive some really good questions. So if you don't know, I'm releasing a new album, Music from Chaos 2, that's coming out February 14th, 2025. I'm saying this because I did receive some questions, and I wanted to make sure that I made a video, just answering back, and I figured this would be the best way to do it in video form. So let's get to it. The first question that I did get was, why did I call this new project Music from Chaos 2? So typically, whenever I do a writing process for a project, I usually have a list of songs or ideas that I have in my head in mind, and then I'll go ahead and create the skeletons of the project, and then I'll fill in the gaps as I create. And that's how I've done it with all of my projects, all the way back from the ones that were on YouTube, all the way up to the ones that from Bryant Park and up that were on the DSPs like Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music. So what made this project different is it's a continuation of the vibe that I got from Music from Chaos. So Music from Chaos was an album I created back in 2021. And what I decided to do was I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself to create, just these very finite spaces and basically these skeletons where it said I have to create within these lanes. I felt like they were putting limitations on my creativity back with that project, and I had a lot of fun creating because I had no limits. I literally I went into the project literally with a blank slate. I had nothing on paper. There was a lot of freestyles that I did within that project, and it made the overall project feel different than past projects. And ever since then, even albums that followed right after it, which was Dream Come True and 828, those projects followed the scheme of my traditional album approach. And with this new album, it was not necessarily planned or intended, because usually when I write, I write consistently. So even if there's not a project in mind, I got notes in my phone where I'm literally just writing ideas, just jotting them down, not thinking about nothing. And with this project, I walked into it with a clean slate, and the clean slate worked out in my favor. I came out of it, within like the first month of recording, I had 6 to 7 songs that were already done. And out of the 6 or 7, 4 of them I really liked. So I kept those. And then I said, okay, I like the way this feels. And it kind of gave me that same feeling that I felt while making Music from Chaos. So I wanted to just continuate on that. And while making 828, there were some ideas that I was like, this could be good for a later project. And I just kind of kept those in the back of my mind as I created, and it worked out. And I'm very happy with the way that this project is going. And that's what makes it very important to share this with y'all. Okay, so another question I did get was about what inspires me as an artist. This was more introspective of a question for me, but I want to say that if you talk to any aspiring artists within like the last 5 to 6 years, a lot of them will tell you a lot of the same things. The music industry itself is pretty much suffering. If you look at what gets praise, it's usually through social media gimmicks. It could be engagement that comes from drama. We're seeing a lot of that. And it's less about the music and more about what the person does surrounding the music, which is perfectly fine because it does create a intimate relationship between you and the people who consume your music, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. The problem kicks in when someone who does not have a background that shows that they have a skill set in the very thing that you're trying to pursue is getting more praise, more adoration, more opportunities to excel in something that other people have spent many years, basically making sacrifices in order to make, their music as successful to them as possible. So for me, my inspiration as of the last couple of years has not come directly from music, but it has come from life experiences that has made my worldview more richer, and that worldview gets shared through my music. Just to kind of give you a good example, I have friends and family members who are no longer with us, and some of those memories of those people, those good memories, I like to kind of keep that spirit alive in my music. And I look at it from a lens of some of the things that they may have told me over the years that helped me grow as an individual. And I want to continue pushing out as much positive energy as I can, despite, the way that the climate of the music industry goes or whatever it is to come of it, just to remain pure in who I am, and that when it's time for me to make music, I'm going to put my best efforts forward and not be caught up in the rat race of what's going to generate the most attention. And that's just not a good place to live in long term. Okay, so next question was my creative process. That has changed over the years. So, nowadays it's written in my phone. So I have like over 500 notes in my notes app on my phone of just random concepts, ideas. And, when I get free time, sometimes it would be just like disciplinary. It'll be 15 to 20 minutes a day of just me writing, just free versing, anything that just comes to mind. And then before you know it, by the end of the week, you'll have maybe somewhere between 80 to 100 bars of just material that you may never use. But it's just like good lyrical exercise. That's typically what I do as of late. My schedule is a little bit more hectic now. I have, kids, family, just obligations, 9 to 5, all those different things. So, towards like the end of the night or when the night routine is going, I'll, just put pen to pad, but more so in the digital sense, obviously, and I'll just get to it. Now, when I was younger, maybe in my teenage years, that was back when I was writing heavily on paper. And writing heavily on paper was different because I would spend somewhere between 40 to 45 minutes just brainstorming and just getting concepts on paper. It literally could look like chicken scratch when I wrote it. But putting a song together, you spent more time writing it out longer, obviously on paper. So I may have spent a longer time back then, but it was simply because the medium changed. The medium was pen and paper. So whenever I would write and get, certain things on paper, I'd go back and review it and say, okay, does this sound good? Does this idea look great? May bounce some ideas off some people, some former colleagues, different things like that. And then I would start writing the songs. But back then, oddly enough, I was writing the whole entire song or album on paper before I even started recording. It did make the recording process go much faster, but there were some time periods where I was like, I think I want to change the direction of where I want to go. So I wasn't writing as I recorded. And that changed probably 2017, around that time period, whenever I was putting albums on DSPs, I wanted to be able to optimize my recording process. So I dabbled into just freestyles on like YouTube, just, not writing anything on paper, but just kind of what comes off, off the top of my head, and it worked. And when it worked, I was like, I didn't even know that it was possible for me to do this, because I've seen people do it before, and I was like, okay, well, that's fine, but I still want to incorporate my writing. So the best way I did it was just writing, different notes and ideas in my phone. And then, once I started recording, I had the skeletons, and then I could basically write it as I went on. And it literally just changed the way I approached writing from that point on. Yep. So the next question was, how do I handle criticism as an artist? I handle criticism as an artist the same way I handle criticism, outside of every other realm. I do more of a vetting process with my criticism, because I don't think that it's, necessarily healthy for any individual to just accept all criticism, because sometimes the person that you're receiving criticism from doesn't mean you need to go out and flat out disrespect them or anything like that. I'm not saying that. It's more about challenging it, and what lens did they get this criticism from? Because sometimes, even if they're not fully well versed into whatever you're getting or receiving criticism for, they are, as a musician standpoint, they are a listening ear. So like, there could be things that they may be catching that even somebody who is very, knowledgeable about musical composition, that may say, okay, well, this particular vibe or this particular song didn't sit well, or it could be a sequencing of songs. It could be the way that the verses are laid, vocal projection, different things like that, that may, that you may want to look into, and that's what's going to help you improve. And there has been criticisms that I've received from even people who are not necessarily too fond of my style of music, and I've accepted their criticism, and I looked at it like, you know what can I take from this? Even if that person doesn't have like a background that says that I need to be accepting this criticism, there could be something in there that could be a gem. But that's part of the vetting process. The vetting process is me trying to figure out, what helps me grow as an artist. But once again, there is other elements of criticism that you just have to flat out ignore. And I think that I do a pretty good job of doing that, because, a lot of times you can tell with an individual what their agenda is behind the criticism. If you've ever received criticism from someone that was like very insecure about themselves, or, said thing in their musical preferences that you may feel like, well, clearly that's not the aim that I'm going for as an artist, you can pretty much kind of determine whether or not you can just flat out write that off. That's, you just move on with your life and keep doing what you're doing. But even with those individuals, the fact that they are giving you criticism is a plus in itself, because, whether you determine it's hate or love, it's really the fact that they took the time out of the day to even criticize you. Like, there's a win-win in that, because clearly you do have some type of effect on them to want to do it. It's just like a troll on social media. Well, even if they don't really mean what they say, if they get a rise out of you, or they get your attention, a lot of times they just really wanted your attention, and they don't even mean what they say half the time. So that's just, some different ways that I deal with it as an artist. And it doesn't mean that the criticism or whatever doesn't hurt, if it's something that you feel like, you can control as an artist, because it can hurt. But the problem is that it's when you start attaching it to your identity as an artist or as a person, that's when you have bigger problems. And I just don't struggle with that per se as an artist, but that's how I handle criticism. It's not necessarily the model for how to handle criticism, because I'm sure there's people who handle it better than I do. But, you know, that's just the way that I've done it over the years.